So Free Your Mind Friday is really about me coming online, and it's about self-forgiveness. Good morning, beautiful spirits. Welcome to Charlotte's Free Your Mind Friday. Hey, free your mind. I always say free your mind and the rest will follow. No, really, what I really say is free your mind and your ass will follow. But essentially, I'm just coming on today because I wanted to just touch base with you guys. And so Free Your Mind Friday is really about me coming online, and it's about self-forgiveness. It's really where I talk to you. Well, I share with you, really, not really talk to you. Share with you something that I'm going to forgive myself for. And that what I want to do is to kind of create a movement where we free our minds on Friday, right? Where we forgive ourselves of something that's really important, so that we can move on with our lives, so we can move forward, so we can feel better about being in alignment with the infinite intelligence and allow the blessings to manifest in our lives. And I think that first of all starts with forgiveness of ourselves, right? And gratitude. So today I'm going to talk a little. Today I'm going to share with you. Today I've decided what I want to forgive myself for is this. I, Charlotte, forgive you for using food to fill the empty spaces. I forgive you, baby, for using food to fill the empty spaces. Now, I'm probably the only person on the planet that has this issue. However, I doubt it. But man, when I think about the thought of forgiving myself for using food to fill the empty spaces, I mean, that is a heavy thing. It is an expansive thing for me to really consider, because I have used food for a very, since the beginning of my life. I have really used food to fill the empty spaces. And, man, to realize that is to really begin to understand who I am and how I have allowed that to take up space and time and energy when I could have been using it for something else. So how I came to really understand my history with food was I was in this workshop called Hunger Within, and one of the exercises was to identify one of the early experiences that I had with food. And I started to think about it, and I came up with a lot of different things, I think the instructor was really trying to encourage us to think about, when was that moment, right? Food had a psychological and or emotional impact on you. When you knew, like, oh my goodness, like it was just different than feeding yourself and being hungry, you know what I mean? But when it kind of transcended from being something you did to something that you attached emotions and feelings and thoughts to. And that was really deep. And so I'm gonna share with you guys my story, and because I think it really informs a lot of why and how I began to use food to fill the empty spaces. So I was a little kid. I'm thinking I'm about 8 or 9, because I don't remember my sister being around, and she was born when I was 10 years old. And so I'm thinking I was about 8 or 9, and I remember a house we were living on. We were living on the other side of Ann Arbor, in a house on Hemlock Drive, and we were eating breakfast. And I don't know about you guys, when we were growing up, we used to eat cereal every morning. It was like the thing to do. I don't know what kids eat nowadays, but we used to had cereal every morning before we went to school. And I remember I had a box of Cheerios. That was my favorite cereal. I ate it almost every morning. I liked some sweet Frosted Flakes, but for the most part, I like my little Cheerios with a little sugar and bananas on it. So, I mean, this is a morning like any other morning, and I'm eating my Cheerios, and I end up fixing a second bowl because I thought, oh God, I'm still hungry. At least I thought I was still hungry. And so what ended up happening was I fixed a second bowl and I started eating maybe a couple of spoonfuls, and then I was realizing, nah, I'm really not. You know how your eyes are bigger than your stomach? Yeah, my eyes were bigger than my stomach, and so I really wasn't all that hungry. And so I had been sitting at the table kind of eating, playing with the bowl, and my mother had come in a couple of times and said, hurry up and eat your breakfast, hurry up and eat your breakfast. And at some point in time, she's like, hurry up and eat that breakfast, you better eat that up before we go. And I told her, I said, look, I'm full. And she said, you better eat that food up. She was not playing. And then I think she came in the second time and she was like, you need to eat that cereal. You know what I mean? And she said, she said it in a way that was like, I better eat that cereal or I was going to get a whooping. And I tried to explain to her that it was my second bowl. She said, well, if you fix the second bowl, then you meant to eat the second bowl. And so I went ahead and I did my best to eat the cereal. Now, by the time I ate up the cereal, first of all, Cheerios, if you leave them around too long in the milk, they get nasty and soggy. So I was like, now I got to eat these nasty, soggy Cheerios and I got to eat it up, right? Or get a whooping. I mean, and there was a point in time, there was a moment when I was like, I think I might take a whooping before I eat these nasty cereals. But I went on ahead and ate the nasty cereal. Ate it up. And then not only did I eat the cereal, but I drank the milk. So, you know, if you're full, right? Let's say you're full. And then you eat a bowl of soggy Cheerios and drink up the milk. I mean, I remember my stomach was hurting. I was in so much pain from the fact that I had really overeaten. And so, you know, I finish and we get ready. And what happens in the morning was my mother used to drive us over to my cousin's house, my cousin Liz's house, because we would walk to school with my cousins, Verna and Kim and Sean and them. And we would all walk together from their house to school because my mother had to go to work earlier than the time in which we would need to leave to walk to school. So she would take us over our cousin's house, and then when it was time to go, we would all go together to school. So we're on our way over to my cousin's house, and my mother's driving kind of fast. It wasn't that far, and it's funny because it wasn't even that far. It's probably like a half a mile. But she's driving fast, and then she pulls up in the parking lot where my cousin lives at, and I remember her, like, kind of slamming on the brakes and, like, me, like, going, woo, 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 you know what I mean? Because she was driving fast. And as I was taking off my seatbelt, I started to feel nauseous. And I was like, feeling like, oh my God. I didn't say anything, but I was just like, I could feel the pain. And I remember I was just holding my stomach. I was on my stomach. And then all of a sudden, before I could really unbuckle my seatbelt and do anything else, I threw up. Yes, I did. I threw up. Now, mind you, throwing up might not have been a bad thing or the worst thing in the whole wide world. But I'm going to tell you something. Throwing up nasty Cheerios. First of all, it was nasty. It was just completely disgusting and nasty. And to add insult to injury, we were in my mama's pretty new purple Mustang car. Now, this was back in the 70s. Had to been early to mid 70s because I'm older now. And my mother looked at me like, I remember the look in her eye. It was, I knew I had disappointed her. And I knew she was angry. And she was like, get out the car. So I got out the car. And so my cousin was coming out. And then my cousin Liz came out, and then she figured out what was happening. And I realized now, like in hindsight, I realized that my cousin Liz was really good about kind of working with my mama, helping to calm her down, helping to keep her cool, because everybody, including my brother, could see my mama was mad. And rightfully so, right? I had thrown up in her brand new car. But I always say, too, that, look, you don't want to make me eat that cereal when I really wasn't hungry. But that's besides the point. And so, the long and the short of it is that, she ended up having to go home because she had to get me some new clothes so I could have decent clothes so I can go to school. So she was late for work. And I remember for the next week, my mother really didn't say anything to me. And so it was interesting to kind of be in this class where I was challenged to think about my early experience with food, and that be the memory that rose up to the top, that came to the forefront of my mind, because I hadn't even thought about it in over 30, almost 40 years. And so it was interesting to realize that, because I think that it was an emotionally traumatic event for me. Because on one hand, I was trying to please my mother, right? Eat up that cereal. I was trying to please her because I didn't want to whoop it either. Yeah, I was trying to please her, but I also didn't want a whooping. And it centered around me eating food. And there's another story I have about food that I will share at another time. And so, when she didn't really speak to me for like several days, she said the bare minimum, like get up, brush your teeth, go to school. Like she just said the bare minimum things to me. She didn't conversation with me. She said, hey, how you doing, baby? Nothing. I mean, I guess because she, at least in my mind, I interpreted that she was really upset about the fact that I had thrown up in her car. And that I think in many ways what I learned is that not only am I supposed to eat up my food, and make sure that it stays down, and is that, not being obedient to that, I might lose emotional connection to the people that I love. And so I think for me, it really was one of the earlier ones. I need to say there are other experiences that I had too, but I think this started my journey in terms of using food to fill the empty spaces, because I felt hurt that, I felt guilty about the fact that I threw up in a car, but I also was feeling like I did what you told me to do. Like it kind of wasn't my fault. And I wish, like, I remember when I first thought about this after many, many years, like, how come this wasn't a moment when I was told it was a mistake? You know what I mean? Because it really was a mistake. It wasn't like I was trying to throw up in her car. But then I was punished, I think, emotionally around the fact that it happened. And so that's why it has ended up being attached to my food journey, even though in many ways it probably doesn't necessarily have to be. But I also remember one of the things that I sometimes suffer from is this need to binge and to be super full, right? Because I do recall like being super full like that keeps me numb, keeps me detached, keeps me safe, keeps me from having to deal with things in life. And so it's not an effective way of dealing with life, but it's what I've done for many, many years. And so, man, as I think about this, I'm saying that, I'm forgiving myself for using food to fill the empty spaces. I'm realizing that I'm at the tip of the iceberg. I'm really just touching on this subject, that it kind of goes really way more deeper, and there are really a lot more other experiences that has contributed to my use of food to fill the empty spaces. And that this forgiveness process, this forgiveness business, actually for me is going to be a process around food, because this is not the only thing I need to forgive myself about. You know what I mean? Or this is not the only story that I need to really dissect and unpack in order to understand, what has happened in relationship to my mind and my spirit as it relates to food, and how to develop new ways of dealing with food so that I can be more effective and use food as a fuel source versus as a companion or a friend or a thing that I go to when I'm happy, sad, mad, upset, whatever. And so I say all this to say that, this is not really about my mama. You know what I mean? It was an incident. It was an event. It was a point in time. But what I do know is that for me, there was a psychological and emotional attachment to eating food that started with this incident as a little kid. And I think her reaction forced me to think that I needed to engage in certain behaviors and certain ways of being as it relates to food that sent me on the path where I kind of used food in ineffectual ways. So yeah, this is kind of deep, and I want to cry. But I think I want to cry, but I and I have no problem crying in front of y'all know that. But at the same time, I feel like, God, there's so much more. Like that's really just the beginning. Oh my goodness. So thank you for hanging out with me today. Please be inspired and motivated to free your mind on Friday, okay? Forgive yourself, right? Start forgiving yourself and start unpacking those stories and understanding, like, okay, I forgive myself for this. Because I understand that this is what happened. And you only were behaving the way you knew how, the best that you could based on what you knew. So again, I'm not about preaching, This is not a monologue, this is a dialogue. So please, 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 please tell me your first food story. What's your first food story? I'm interested. And did it have a kind of psychological, emotional impact on you? And how does it fit into how you relate to food or how you use food in your life right now? So thank you for hearing me. Thank you for hearing me. I'm wishing you nothing but peace and joy and happiness, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy Friday! Free your mind, fam. Free your mind. Take care now. Peace.